Doug McElway is standing by with former State Department spokeswoman Morgan Ortagus. Doug, over to you.
And we now turn from military to diplomacy, and we are joined by Morgan Ortagus, the former State Department spokesperson during the Trump administration, who just recently announced, by the way, that she is running for Congress in Tennessee's 5th Congressional District. Morgan, thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
You know, in making your announcement to run for Congress, you cited what is happening in this country, and you cited your fears for your brand new baby daughter, your beautiful little girl, who I've seen on Facebook. She's absolutely adorable. But you've cited your many concerns about her future. They range obviously from the insecure border, the rampant inflation that we're seeing in this country, an inept foreign policy, a president who seems to be lacking some fundamental mental faculties at this point. It goes on and on. Do you think that our adversaries see opportunity in what you so fear?
Yeah, how could they not, right? When you looked at what happened at the end of the Trump administration, under President Trump and Mike Pompeo, we handed over a peaceful Middle East to President Biden and his team. We saw the Abraham Accords, which you all have reported on extensively. That was 4 peace deals between Israel and Arab states, the first peace deals in 26 years. So we hand that to the Biden administration, and what happens? Within 3 months, Hamas is attacking Israel. Within 7 months, Kabul has fallen to the Taliban. And now just within a year, 1 year later, you have 150,000 troops, Russian troops at Ukraine's border. So I think it is very easy. What so many people, so many rogue and bad actors do around the world is they test in the first year of a presidency. They want to see what the president is made of, what his team is made of, what kind of resolve they have. And unfortunately, they have tested and they have found President Biden to be lacking.
How would the Trump administration have handled this issue differently?
It's funny that you ask that, because I do get that from reporters at times. Listen, I don't think that this would have been an issue under the Trump administration. It wasn't an issue, right? Because as I said, these dictators, these despots around the world, they try to push a president to see how far that they can get. Remember, the last time that Russia invaded Ukraine, invaded Crimea, that was in the second term of the Obama administration. And as much as President Trump had critics on Russia, you didn't actually see them making these moves during his administration, and that's because at Mike Pompeo's State Department, we had dozens of actions, sanctions, and other penalties that we levied against Putin and his cronies in Russia whenever they got out of line. And so Putin just did not test President Trump in the way that he is testing President Biden. I think it's very simple. These dictators will do what they think that they can get away with.
As a candidate for Congress, you're going to have to make your case to the people of Tennessee, and in fact to America, about why the United States should be involved in Ukraine. What is in it for the United States, and why should a war-weary public pay attention to that?
Well, you hit the nail on the head. We actually should not be involved militarily in Ukraine. They are not a NATO ally. They are a democracy, and we should do any non-military means to support them, to help them, to aid them, because we should always stand up for democracies. If we see a ground war in Europe, this will be the first ground war since the 1930s, and all dictators around the world will learn that they can take territory by force and that there will be no consequences for it. So while I think that we have a lot of options at our disposal, I don't think that anybody of good conscience can say that we should involve American troops in a war that's for a country that's not NATO. Now, I believe totally in standing up for our NATO allies and defending the alliance, but this is why what you're seeing going on right now is exactly why President Trump said that we needed a strong NATO. It's why he demanded that everyone pay their fair share. And at the time, he got a lot of criticism for that. But this is the kind of thing that was so prescient that he could see in advance, and he knew that if it came time to protect other NATO allies, to be involved in a fight together, that everybody had to be in the fight equally. That's why he pushed it. He got a lot of criticism at the time, but case in point, what is happening now in Eastern Europe is an example of why President Trump was right, that everyone needs to pay their fair share to be a part of the alliance.
Well, we haven't seen an invasion yet, and to play the devil's advocate here, look at it from Russia's perspective. They see a potential Ukraine as a part of the as a part of the NATO alliance, as a threat to them. It basically encircles the whole western side of Russia as a threat. It's akin, they maintain, to the Cuban Missile Crisis, where Russia, looking at it from the United States perspective, had missiles aiming at us from just 100 miles away. They see a very similar but mirror perspective of facing their country. And that crisis, the Cuban Missile Crisis, only ended not when we pulled our troops, but when they pulled their troops from Cuba and their missiles from Cuba, but also the United States pulled its missiles from Turkey. How about a concession and say, Ukraine is neutral. We're not going to participate in NATO with them?
Because the Russian Federation can't tell us or NATO who belongs in the alliance. That's a decision that should happen amongst the members of the alliance. It has not happened yet. That is not something that has been on the table in recent years. And you don't get to just take territory by force that you lost when the Soviet Union crumbled because you want to, right? That's not how things work in Europe. Again, saying that, I have not argued and never have argued that we should be involved militarily in Ukraine because they are not a part of the alliance. But what the Russians want is, of course, not only for Ukraine to never enter NATO, which is a sovereign decision for Ukraine and for NATO, they really don't want us, the United States or NATO, to have missile defense systems in Eastern Europe, to have troops there, to have a presence. I think that it's important that America be involved in alliances where everybody is paying their fair share, where everybody is involved equally. So I have supported President Trump whenever he's called for that as it relates to NATO. But the United States, in order to have the freedom and prosperity that we enjoy, we have to stand up for American greatness. We have to stand up for democracy, for freedom, for human rights. Vladimir Putin, Xi Jinping of China, they do not stand for these things. And if we want to enjoy the many things that we enjoy in America, principally among them religious freedom, that's stuff that you don't see in the sphere of influence of the Russians or the Chinese. Listen, I was in Ukraine just almost exactly 2 years ago to this month. I think it was in February 2020. I was there with Mike Pompeo. We visited the Christian Orthodox Church in Ukraine that has been harassed by the Russians. And Mike Pompeo stood up with them because he stood up for religious freedom in Ukraine, there and around the world. And we did that throughout President Trump's presidency, and I think it's one of the most important things that any administration can stand for.
Morgan Ortagus, we really appreciate your perspective, and we'll be watching that congressional race in the months to come. Thank you very much for your perspective.
Thank you.